I'm sorry, can you guys hear me now? Okay, yeah, sorry about that. uh, a technical glitch there. So, anyways, I was just showing you guys your schedule for next month, and it looks like you guys are in 209H, which is kind of by where the hangar is. It's kind of by if you let's see, I don't know if you guys know where the key box is, but it's that room right above there. And you can see your schedule. I think Kim, one of these days it shows you guys going from like 9 till 1 in the morning, but that will probably change, I assume. And just a reminder as well that we are at spring break next week, of course. So you don't have to come to class or anything. So I know that a lot of you are going on vacation, whatever. But just a reminder that next week we're off for the break. So, anyways, I know that we were having technical difficulties with the session last week, and in tonight's session, we're not going to go through the whole thing, but I just want to, if you're seeing this for the first time, I just want to go ahead and remind you that because we weren't able to record it last week. So, in any case, what you can do is you just go to our YouTube page and you can check out like a previous month, or there's on that page, there's a few ones actually, but just check out the week 3 one, and that kind of will walk you through how to do project 3. But just to real quickly touch on this, and we're just going to go through some of the highlights before. But what you have to do for project 3, and just a reminder before I explain this too, that you are not necessarily doing this assignment that's based on a company. I mean, the main thing that you're trying to get across here is some product. I just want to remind you of that, just because I noticed that there was a couple of people that did project 2 and even commented on the discussion of last week that they were planning to do this project based on their company. And like one example was like a recording studio. And remember, that's not the point of this. The point is to have some type of product you can get out there and you can self-publish and self-distribute. So we're not looking for a company necessarily, but we're looking for a specific, uh, piece of creative content that you can get across. Nonetheless, there's still an aspect of Project 3 that is based on a company, and we'll just kind of walk you through that once again. But just to, if you didn't see last week's session, once again, you can check out the archive for that for a full version of that. But just a couple of things to highlight. Remember that as sort of a way that Kim did Project 3. Remember, she had some other books that she had published with a traditional publisher, but for her last book, and actually the last 3 books, she's decided to self-publish. And so she had the content there. Remember, it's based on a character called Elizabeth Bathory, right? So she's a famous character in history. She's been featured in a lot of like movies and some classic movies from the 1970s. Also, the evil queen from Snow White and things like that. And Julie Delpy, the French actress, did a movie of her a couple years ago called The Countess, which is based on her. And there's a movie called Staying Alive, I believe it is, where they have a video game where you go inside the video game and you play as Elizabeth Bathory, or you try to defeat the evil character who is based on Elizabeth Bathory. So that's what her book is about. But just to get to the point, though, about what she did for distribution, remember, she used a print on demand. Now, those of you online students, remember, that was your whole discussion last week. That was on the discussion board, as to research some print on demands. And we had some good answers to that too. We had lots of people that preferred on the music side, TuneCore, CD Baby, things like that. On the film side, there's Distributor was a popular one I noticed, and CreateSpace is another one, and that's the one that Kim used for her book. And so what she did is she, went to CreateSpace and she got her book published. The whole thing's like just cost about $37. Now, since then, I think they've raised their price a little bit, but it's still very, very cheap, right? And she created a website for it. And remember that print on demand, what they'll do is they have all these advantages to them. So you can keep your copyright. They will take care of all like customer service. They will get you worldwide distribution, which is obviously very, very important. And some other things here. A print on demand company a good one will get you expanded distribution. They'll get you the barcode, the ISBN number, remember, and for her social media marketing campaign, she used Facebook. She created an official web page. Now, um, I don't think that Kim has talked about this yet, but she'll probably talk about it tomorrow. But there's something called stealth marketing that she used, which is a little bit ethically questionable. Some people don't like stealth marketing, but it's basically undercover marketing. But a lot of companies do it. But like what they'll do, for example, they'll go on Facebook and they'll create avatars that will hype and pump up products. In fact, there is 60 Minutes did a piece not too long ago about this. You can probably find it if you just go to YouTube and type in 60 Minutes stealth marketing, and they show examples. I'm not sure if they have the full version on YouTube, but in the full version that I have, okay, yeah, so she touched on that a little bit. But anyways, in the full version that I have on disc here, actually, I have the disc of it. They they actually go to New York City and they like check out all these companies that are basically doing stealth marketing. Now they have to do it partially because these are tobacco companies and alcohol companies, and there are laws in place. Remember, where for a lot of those companies where they're kind of they have challenges and obstacles that other companies don't have when it comes to advertising and marketing. But part of why they did this also was because it's very powerful, and also because they didn't have a large budget. So what they would do is they would basically take smokers and put them in bars. And the idea there was to have their packs of cigarettes with them at all times on the bar, just so that people walking by could see the brand that they have, right? And alcohol companies did the same thing and things like that. And stealth marketing, there was a movie a couple years ago with Demi Moore and David Duchovny, right? It was called The Joneses, and it was all about stealth marketing. So kind of it's a questionable practice, but a lot of companies do it. But anyways, though, we're going to talk about social media a little bit here tonight. And of course, some of the last few chapters, and obviously Kim will talk a little bit about this tomorrow. But I mean, social media, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize with social media, and I know that Kim showed you guys this video, but Eric Coleman wrote a book and talked about socialnomics and how you're really falling behind if you don't use social media. I mean, even if you're just going to have, just like a Facebook page that doesn't cost anything, right? And Twitter and things like that. Some examples, but uh, social media is very, very powerful. And I know that Kim didn't show the on ground class the video, but if you want to check it out, there's a fascinating video that Frontline did a few years ago called Revolution in Cairo, I believe. And it was all about how these people, these protesters in Egypt, were really having a difficult time getting their message out because, well, first of all, there was a number of there was a government factors, right? They didn't have the freedom that we have in the U.S. So, and because they were being killed in the streets and stuff like that. But also, what they did to kind of challenge this is they took to Facebook, and they also used some other social media as well. But Facebook was the big one, and they sort of got out their message and were able to organize revolutions, and they overturned Mubarak, right? And then that was kind of like the domino effect, because after that, you know, you had the same things happen in Tunisia and other places like that. And I know I mentioned some of this last week, I think, but in any case, though, you want to make sure that you have at least some type of social media strategy. So in Project 3, which we'll go over again tonight, real briefly, there's a section on marketing, right? Now, obviously, you can talk about radio marketing and advertising, newspapers, magazines, things like that, of course, but you definitely want to have some type of social media strategy as well. Now, in the last few chapters, there is a case study that is discussed, and it's looking at this author now named Amanda Hawking. Right now, she basically did exactly what you guys did for projects 1 and 2. So she wrote a query letter, and she wrote well, she wrote a lot. She wrote press releases. She did book proposals. She sent them to agents. She couldn't find one, right? So she said, "Okay, well, screw you guys then. I'm going to try to do it myself." So she couldn't do it the traditional way. So she decided to try this self-publishing model that you guys are doing for Project 3. And she also used CreateSpace. Now, that's not an endorsement of CreateSpace, but that's just the one that she used. That's the one that Kim used as well. And she started out by selling these really, really tiny, not even novels, but like novellas, right? Just 50, 60-page books, basically, for a real cheap price. And didn't cost her anything because she was selling digital copies of this. And she began to, ironically enough, get a following. And this sort of mushroomed into other opportunities. And by the time you knew it, her books were so popular that she was making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then what happened was that because her books were selling so well and she was doing it herself, larger publishers came to her and said, "Hey, can we offer you a contract now?" And we're talking a lot of money. I mean, now she's a multimillionaire. In fact, her one of her books is being released later this year as a movie, I believe, maybe 2015. But it's written by um, or being adapted by the same person that did District 9, right? Or the screenplay for District 9. And so now, like I said, she's a multimillionaire. And she's not much older than what you guys are now, right? And so she was selling her books basically, like you see here, with print on demand. I know I mentioned this last week, but with print on demand, your royalty rates are a lot higher, right? So if you're getting 15% royalty rates, which is typical in the book publishing industry, with hard copies and going through the traditional way, well, guess what? If you do it yourself and go through Kindle, and you get a print on demand company that will get you on Kindle, then you can have royalty rates that are much higher than that. In fact, some of the royalty rates that these print-on-demand companies will offer you are like 70%. Obviously, you guys in the music field, you guys mentioned this last week in the discussion that TuneCore will give you 100% of royalties, right? Now there's a fee, a monthly or yearly fee that you have to pay, but still, that's better than 15%, right? And then there's also, of course, a CD Baby, which will give you like a 91% royalty rate or something like that. And these rates kind of fluctuate, so they're not always set in stone. And every print-on-demand company has their own advantages and disadvantages. So remember, we're not endorsing any print-on-demand company for this project. So you're welcome to use whatever you want, just as long as you explain it, right? And we have all our slides in the references, so you can click on this video later if you want, but there's an interview with her. Also, a little boy, a little 14-year-old, was able to use this and create an app for Facebook, right? And he did a lot of research, I guess, to create this. I'm not entirely 100% familiar with how to create apps and stuff like that, but he was actually, for a while, as it says here, 1.5 million downloads within 3 weeks of launch. Now, he was not just a 14-year-old, and I guess his parents weren't that business savvy. He offered this for free. But you can see there that even if he would have offered like just selling it for like 99 cents, probably he wouldn't have sold as much. He wouldn't have sold 1.5 million, but he still nonetheless would have made a lot of money, right? And there's another interview with him if you want to check that out as well. And then also, here's an interesting case. A TV company with real actors, real producers, real directors created this show, and not to use profanity, but I'm just saying in the name of it. It was called Imaginary Bitches, right? And it had real characters in it, real actors. In fact, the main character, I forget her name offhand, but she was actually in the first American Pie movie briefly, and she's been in a lot of other stuff. And anyways, she was the main star of this. Now, to be honest, it was kind of set up as sort of a pilot, right? They weren't sure if they could sell it to a TV network, and so they basically just, they had some ideas for full length episodes, but basically they had just kind of a short little pilot, right? and the TV networks turned him down. So they said, well, we already have this produced. How can we distribute it somehow, right? So they decided to put it on on a website and just offer it for free and just rely on advertising money. And by doing this, it was very, very successful. And a lot of people, they were, you can see here, it started, so they basically turned a TV show into a web series, right? And it premiered in 2008 and 13 5 to 7 minute episodes in season one. And so again, they were very, very successful with doing this. And those of you on like the video game side, for example, you might be familiar with a guy named the Angry Video Game Nerd. And he kind of started out by doing something similar, right? Where he just had a website and he was offering the basically what he does is he takes old video games and just makes fun of how bad they are, right? And it turned out to be a really, really funny show. They still have episodes. In fact, they're doing a movie right now that he says it's probably going to come out in 2015. But I don't know how much money he makes. I don't have the stats on that. But he's definitely, I would guess he probably makes a lot of money, because if you go to his website, which is like cinemassacre.com or whatever, um, they have lots of ads that I'm sure they get lots of money for. And so the point of this, though, is that, projects 1 and 2 were about doing things the traditional way, and you were trying to pitch to the major networks, the major studios, major publishers, whatever it might be. And here's a way in project 3 where you can do it yourself and you can become highly successful. And again, this kind of bookends the class, right? We talked about this the very first day, in the very first week on this, is that this is kind of unique because this was not available to us about maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. I mean, if you couldn't get things done doing it project 1 and project 2, then you were kind of out of luck, right? But by self-publishing, and we also talked about this on the first day, but the old way of self-publishing was basically vanity presses, which had a really bad reputation, right? Because it was basically printing companies. You want to make a film, we'll give you the DVDs to do it. We'll put it on DVDs for you. If you want to write a book, we'll print it for you. But they didn't give you the barcode. They didn't give you the ISBN number. And they would also, in some cases, take the copyright, things like that. But here you go. And also, as mentioned before, that even if you were lucky to get your projects 1 and 2 the traditional way sold, you couldn't keep your copyright, and you were kind of at a mercy to whatever the studio wanted to do, right? So, like, as a perfect example of this, um, Quentin Tarantino actually wrote Natural Born Killers, right? But so he wrote it and he got it sold. But then the studios butchered it in his mind. Oliver Stone got his hands on it. In fact, Oliver Stone later wrote the screenplay and directed the movie. And it was so bad in his eyes that he wanted to distance himself from it completely. He wanted his name taken off the script. He couldn't do it because by that time he had already been a little bit successful, and they wanted to use his name on there for marketing purposes, right? Also, another example would be if you guys have ever seen the movie Seven. Um, Seven was written by a guy named Andrew Kevin Walker, a famous Hollywood screenwriter, and that was kind of his first movie. And I'm sure he made some money from it, but he didn't make a lot of money from it. But because of the success of Seven, and by the way, to go back to Seven, actually, he wrote the thing as you see it as a movie today, right? He wrote it just like that. But the studio, they didn't want his version of it. And it was later on, in fact, so they had him write like all these other subsequent drafts. And it was later on where Brad Pitt had already been signed and Morgan Freeman had been signed and to do the movie. And then they got the script that the studio wanted, and they said, no, we're not doing this. Brad Pitt said, I'm not doing it unless I'm getting the original version. So Andrew Kevin Walker basically got saved in that instance. But anyways, though, his next movie was called 8mm with Nicolas Cage. It wasn't a very good movie. You probably have seen it, right? But he wrote the screenplay a lot differently than what you see on the screen. And He thought that the studio butchered it. They took his version of it. They had the copyright because he sold it to them. And he was so angry by what Joel Schumacher did to the movie in that he wanted his name taken off the script. In fact, he saw the changes, and from what I know, he never even saw the movie after that because he was so mad, so angry that he lost the copyright. And so we can go on and on with these examples, but the point of Project 3 is that you get to keep your copyright. So you can have your movie exactly how you want it, or your book exactly how you want it. And if you want to see the show that I was just talking about, this web series, Imaginary Bitches, there's the name or the URL for it, or you can just do a Google search on it. Okay, so for the online students, remember your discussion this week is basically just to reflect on your personal media consumption and and not just that, but how do you think distribution is going to go in the future in general, right? Do you see more physical copies being sold, more digital copies being sold? Obviously now digital copies of music are more popular than CDs, but nonetheless, though, how has the process evolved, and how has your own media consumption evolved in the last few years? And also, do you see it maybe tilting back to some degree? I don't think we're ever going to get rid of digital, but do you think that might be more of a popularity with physical stuff now? Because there's still some things I think that physical books offer that digital books don't, and there's still some things that physical copies of other things offer that digital versions don't. And so do you maybe see things tilting back a little bit? So that's basically the discussion this week, and look ahead to the future of media distribution. And I mean, obviously, um, with the digital route, you can also touch on, like, how Netflix a few years ago was basically offering, they were maybe the only company out there that was offering streaming and stuff like that. But obviously, since Netflix, we've seen some other companies doing it as well, and there were maybe some companies before Netflix doing it as well too. And now Netflix has many competitors. I mean, Redboxes, Amazon Video, and things like that. And so, where do you see the future heading? Do you think that there might be other companies that sort of drive Netflix and Redbox and companies like that out of business? Or just explain your opinion. There's really not a lot of right or wrong answers, but just kind of explain what your opinion is on that, right? Okay, so I think that's gonna wrap things up. I'm just trying to remember if there was anything else. If anybody has any questions, just type them in the chat box there. And I don't think there's anything else left to do but the attendance questions. And yeah, so I think that might be it. So you guys did a great job this month. Good luck in your future classes. Remember, again, a reminder. Oh, and actually, there is one more thing I want to do. I probably showed you this last week, but I just want to show you one example of Project 3, just in case you didn't see that, or if you didn't see any of the archive versions. Let's just look at this real quickly. This is Project 3, student example. Also, and there is one thing too I want to mention in case you didn't get a chance to watch last week's or the archive version from the previous month or anything like that. Remember that for Project 3, you have to follow this exact format, okay? Because a question came up from somebody, I'm not sure if she's going to be listening, but a question came up, can you do a video of Project 3, like a QuickTime video or something like that? And the answer is no. This is really meant to be a written assignment. It doesn't have to be an APA paper or anything like that, but it's really meant to be a visual assignment. I mean, or I'm sorry, like a written assignment. So, I mean, that isn't to say that you can't do it in like Pages or provide a PDF or anything like that. You certainly can if you want, and include illustrations, images, things like that. You certainly can, but you can't really do this as like a narrated keynote or something like that, or like any type of video or anything like that. So in Project 2, of course, you had different templates to follow. The book people had to do a book proposal, which was different than the game treatment, which was different than the film treatment, which was different than the press kit, right? So every group kind of had its own things. But for this assignment, you kind of have to follow this format exactly. And I know I probably mentioned this, but let's just go over this real quickly. The mission statement is not supposed to be, in this case, this is kind of a bad example, because this student, what they did, even though this is a very good project overall, the mission statement should not be the mission of your company necessarily. Like you could see, he's talking about the mission statement of his records, right? His record company. That's not the mission statement. That's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be about the mission of the project, right? So if you're developing a music project, then what is the mission of that project? I mean, try to avoid just saying, I want to make money, which is true. Everybody wants to make money, but is there some kind of larger goal in addition to that, maybe beyond that, right? So the mission statement should be about the mission of your project. Okay. Executive summary. You guys can all use previous stuff that you did for project 2, like your biographies and things like that, but the executive summary is about you as the artist, the author, the filmmaker, etc. So just give us a little description of yourself, executive summary. Now this is about the company, this next section, which is about the company. Now, we mentioned this before, but you can be hypothetical here, and you can sort of invent a company just for the purposes of this project, right? So if you have, let's just say that Jeremy's doing like some kind of music project, right? A collection of songs, a CD, etc. Well, if you just are doing that, that's fine, but you can also invent like Jeremy's record company or something like that, right? So you can invent a company for this. It does not have to be your real company. I know it sounds like a broken record. We've talked about this before, but it doesn't have to be the company that you're doing as the main company for the EBMS final project, right? So company description here, and again, because it can't be hypothetical, you can invent other people in this. You can talk about your friends having roles in the company, COOs and CFOs and stuff like that. So you can be a little bit hypothetical here. Again, the idea here is to show how you would go about explaining this to a potential investor in real life. Then you have the product itself, whatever that product might be, your CD, your film, your book, your game, just a little bit of information. And once again, you can reuse some of the stuff that you did for project 2. There's not really anything such as self-plagiarism for this class. Now, the most important part of this assignment, though, is this part, the manufacturing and distribution. And you can see here that this is the longest part of his project here, and it's the most important part. Now, he's actually using CD Baby, and he explains why. So that's fine. You can use CD Baby, you can use TuneCore, you can use, there's a new one out, I think it's called DistroKid, which is another popular one for music. You can use any of those companies that you want. You just have to go about explaining which one you're going to use and why you chose that, right? So in this case, he's using CD Baby, and he's explaining and comparing it to TuneCore. And he's explaining like why he chose it. And like, for example, he says, although CD Baby has the benefit of distributing physical albums, he's also going to be, or he's not going to be using these services, right? Okay, and then he explains, he breaks down, this is probably right from CD Baby's website, but he explains like kind of the difference between CD Baby, TuneCore, marketing and promotion. So this is actually the longest part of this project, but the most important part is the manufacturing and distribution. But just explain how you're gonna market and promote your company. And now he's providing the logo. You don't have to do that, but I mean, if you want to, because this can be hypothetical, you can go to a site called like Logo Chefs, a little bit, and you can sort of invent your own logo if you want. And then just a brief conclusion, right? Maybe we could show you one more here. And then we'll get to the attendance questions. Okay, so let's look here. Let's maybe look at one more example. Let's look at books. Okay, this is a good example. Okay, so Marcia, actually, okay, for film, okay, yeah, I'll get to that in a second, but here, let me just real quickly go through this. This is a book, and the book is called Where Did Grandma Go? And she explains that to enlighten African American caregivers of children about different and real emotions regarding the concept of death. So it's basically based on this idea that it's difficult to explain to a child when grandma dies, right? So that's kind of what the book is about. And then executive summary is about herself, company description, remember. Now this is unique because in addition to that, or no, wait, yeah, in addition to the book, she's actually offering a 2-disc CD as well. Obviously, you don't have to do that, but manufacturing and distribution, and you can see here that now she's using the company. I just want to point this out because, okay, she's using this company called Ex Libris. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but now here's something to point out. They have a Dreamtime package for about $3,000. Now, it's okay in this case because she goes into an explanation about why she's using it. She goes into the financials, right? In real life, if I was advising her, I would tell her to not use a company like that. You don't need these special packages. I mean, one of the points of self-publishing is that you shouldn't have to spend a lot of money to do it, right? But nonetheless, she kind of goes through the financials of that and explains, even if we disagree with it, she explains why she's using it. And she has good reasoning, even if we disagree with it, right? And then her marketing is like, she talks about Facebook and Twitter, and then she talks about radio stations and stuff like that. But let's go ahead and we'll look at an example for film. Okay, so the mission of Friendship Never Dies, it's called, is to present you with imitations of life which were built on principles of loyalty, humbleness, dedication, patience, and none before God. While aspiring to entertain the audience with real-life occurrences, the primary person is to leave them optimistic about the existence of the supernatural, and so on and so forth. So the idea here, you get the point that the mission, it's intended to make money, of course, but there should be some type of like higher purpose or some type of social statement or something like that that you want to make. Okay, so the mission is about the product, the mission of the film. Executive summary, once again, just a little bit about yourself. Oh, and it's actually worth pointing out that this should be written in the third person, right? So you wouldn't say I discovered a unique talent for drawing, literary arts, etc. It would be Marcia from her early beginnings. She discovered, so right in the third person. Then the company description. Just a couple of points that you want to do in the company description is you want to tell the reader where it's based, probably, how big the company is, and then maybe some of the key players. You don't have to go into a lengthy dissertation about financials and stuff like that, but just tell us where at least it's based, like, and how big it is. Is this a small company or is this a large company? And then maybe just a little bit about who the key players are, what their roles are, etc. And the product, once again, just about the film, what the film is. So I would actually say, just looking at this too, I would say the mission of the film is slightly different than what the product section is. The mission of the mission statement here is, what is the purpose of it? What's the point of it? Okay, the product section here is more of just telling the reader what it is about. Like, what's the plot, for example. Then manufacturing and distribution. Now she's going to be using, or he or she, I can't remember, but this she's going to be, or he's going to be using CreateSpace, which is fine. Remember, CreateSpace does films as well. They do DVDs. You can use FilmBaby or Distributor as well, but in this case, they're using CreateSpace. Just looking at this though, the one thing I would question, let me see if she goes, well, okay, they do talk about the financials here, which is good, but the thing that kind of stands out in this case would be that it looks like he or she is only selling the DVD for $4.95. Now that's okay, I guess, because, well, okay, the point is just look and explain what the financials are. I guess that, oh, I see what she's saying. Okay, never mind. I was gonna say she's not charging $4.95. That's what they charge for them. And for video downloads of the film, members will choose to distribute. CreateSpace will earn royalties of 50%. So, every print-on-demand company is going to be a little bit different, right? On the music side, you actually make a little bit more than that, usually for royalties. But in some print-on-demand companies, you're going to make less, particularly in other mediums, right? And then marketing promotion. So she's going to create a web page, it says, to promote the film. So the web page is going to include a movie trailer, a written summary of the film, discussion forum. And the point that I want to make here actually is, remember with how it worked about 5 years ago, it was kind of expensive to have a web hosting, right? But now you can find services out there like GoDaddy.com that are almost like dirt cheap, right? We're talking, just like a couple bucks a month to have. So in addition to having a Facebook page, you would probably want to have your own official web page. And then the other point I want to make, because I know that the online students didn't get a chance to see it, I don't think, but what Kim did too is she just created a YouTube video. And of course, with your Macs, right, with the built-in camera, and you can do a video, or with like tools like even doing like a narrated keynote that can be turned into a video and stuff like that. You could have some type of promotional video for hardly any money at all, or if no money at all, actually, right? And then she says, okay, social media sites like YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram will be used. Remember, social media is cheap, most of the time free, so it's not going to cost you anything. And then finally, just a brief paragraph concluding the whole thing. Just a brief summary. It doesn't have to be that long. And just the last thing to point out here is that it doesn't have to be in APA formats. So you don't have to worry about following APA rules. Don't worry about spacing. It doesn't have to be single spaced or double spaced. There's a running head up here, but there doesn't need to be a running head. There's a cover page here, but it doesn't need to be, you don't have to have a cover page. Now, maybe the one thing missing is that if you do have any sources, just list them at the end. So for example, if you're talking about stuff on like CD Baby's website, then you might just want to put a link at the end, references, and then cdbaby.com or something like that. And so as you're doing project 3, just remember that, like I said, make sure that to follow the format exactly as in the template, right? It's called business plan strategy. So follow that template exactly so you can't do any videos. And then finally, also the most important part of the project is manufacturing and distribution. And the more detail, especially in that section, that you can give us, the better you're going to do on it. So in other words, tell us exactly what it's going to cost on your print on demand site, what it's going to cost you, what price per unit, how much money you're going to make per unit sold. And you don't have to get into like projections and stuff like that that you did for Mike Koch's class, but so you don't have to go into excruciating detail and and projections and things like that. But at least tell us in as much detail as possible how you're going to go about distributing this, what the print on demand company offers that others don't. So comparisons are definitely great. So if you want to explain comparisons between CD Baby and TuneCore and why you chose one over the other, that's great. And I think that's it. If there's no other questions, we'll get into the attendance questions now. So once again, good luck everybody in your next class. I think you'll love Kristen's class. That's a really, really good class. It's called Digital Marketing, and it's very popular in our program. So wish you all the best of luck. And if there's no other questions, we'll take a look here at the attendance questions, which, just like last week, are kind of largely based on Project 3. So, and also just a reminder, of course, if you have any questions before the end of the week as you're doing this, then you can always send us an email. Okay, so let's get into these. Number one, what piece of creative content will you be using for your self-publishing and distribution business strategy? And that's pretty self-explanatory. You know, you're doing a DVD, you're doing a book, you're doing a music project like a CD or even a digital CD or collection of songs, or you're doing a game. Just a reminder here, though, that what you're not doing is you're a company necessarily. Even though there's a company section on that Project 3, that's not what this Project 3 is about. It's about the creative content here. Okay, in the mission statement, you should be discussing the mission of your what? And the answer is, once again, your project. And you don't have to give Kim a very long answer on this. Just say your project and then maybe in parentheses, not the company, because that explains it perfectly. Okay, number 3, is it acceptable to use a real hypothetical or final project business for this project? And the answer is yes, you can use whatever you want, whether it's real or hypothetical, whether it applies to your final business plan, you can use it. So it is acceptable. And number 4, what is an aggregator or print on demand? Well, obviously, those of you that were in the online discussion last week, of course, you kind of already explained that, but not that you guys have to do this test anyways, but it's just for the on-campus class. But a print-on-demand company, of course, which I hope you know by now, is just a company that is sort of the middle person between you and the customer, but it's not an agent, right? Or it's not a publisher in the large publisher. It's a company that will allow you to self-publish and self-distribute your project. So that's probably what I just said there. That's probably the best answer for that. A company that helps you self-publish and self-distribute your project. Okay, number 5, how will an aggregator or print on demand be necessary for this project? And the answer is that it'll help you get your project out to your consumer, whereas you wouldn't be able to do so otherwise. So it's essential to have an aggregator or print on demand because they take care of all the publishing and distribution. Okay, and number 6, if you have one in mind already, discuss which one will you use for this project and why. And that's a easy and important question because you can use your answer to number 6 for your project 3 for your manufacturing and distribution section because it's basically the same question, or it's part of the question. Okay, number 7, is it acceptable to reuse relevant content from previous projects? Yes, it is. Remember, there's no such thing as self-plagiarism in this class. And finally, the last few questions here. Where can you find the business strategy template and other resources provided, POD checklist? And the answer to that is it's attached with the assignment instructions. So all of that stuff is attached with the assignment instructions. You know, in the old days, before the new FSO system, we used to have a whole resources section, and now they've gotten rid of that actually. So we could create an assignment with all of them on there. In fact, we might have, but in any case, though, all of these things are attached with the assignment instructions themselves. So you really can't miss it. Number 9, is there a page requirement for this project? The answer is no. But just a little advice on that question though. Usually in most cases, the longer and more detailed, the better the project is. But there is no page requirement. And then finally, number 10, are you required to double space this project, do APA, all that stuff? No, the answer is no. So number 10, the answer is no, although just a heads up though, in Kristen's class, you actually have to do 10 4-page papers in APA next month. But just kidding, just kidding. Okay, so that should do it. So thank you all for attending, and we'll see you guys tomorrow in class. So yeah, I guess we'll see everybody tomorrow. And in case anybody's listening from online, just remember, if you have any last minute questions, just let us know. And also, once again, good luck to everybody in your next month's class. And of course, spring break is next week, or not spring break, but I guess it would be the summer break. But our breaks are so much different than other colleges that it's hard to really, or it's very easy to confuse this stuff. So anyways, next week is the break. So we'll see everybody that are on campus students tomorrow. And for you online students, good luck and maybe see you at graduation.